Let me know when you guys can hear me. Hello, hello. Okay. I can see you all now. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another book club meeting. Thank you for subscribing. Tina Wagner, glad to have you here. Hi, Anna. Hi, Verda. Hello, hello. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Blue Sisters. We voted last time. You guys said you wanted a break from some of the self-help books, so we did a fiction book, a novel. And usually, if we do a novel, I try to pick something that still has themes that'll give us some mental health or relational topics to cover in these lives. And so this one is a book about four sisters, and three of them are experiencing grief. So that is the book that we'll be talking about today, Blue Sisters. Okay, so I'm trying to pull it up to look at my notes. Curious about if you guys have read it, what your rating is, even if you didn't finish it, what the rating is so far. I'll share a little bit about my rating. So for me, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. This is one of the few times where I actually started reading a book in advance and then decided to make it the book of the month. A lot of times I'm starting the book with you all, and so we kind of discovered together. And this was a unique opportunity where I read a little bit of it and I was like, wait, I have so much I want to talk about. And so I was like, let me go ahead and make this our book of the month, since everyone said that they wanted to do a book that was a novel. And so for me, I gave it 3 stars because I was so invested the first half of the book, which is why I was so excited to bring it to the book club. But what ended up happening is that I started losing interest as we were moving further in the book past the halfway mark. And I think that I was expecting more to happen. I think I was hoping that they would. I was hoping, I think, for a little bit more character development. It felt like the characters were in the same place for about 80-90% of the book, and then the last 10 to 20% of the book is where we start seeing some growth and change, and I found myself getting really, really frustrated with them. So I'm going to start reading some of my notes. I actually prepared some questions for you all, so even if you didn't read the book, these questions are inspired by the book, but they are in general, so you should still be able to participate and share, because I love to hear what you all are thinking, even if you haven't read the book. I know some of you like to join the lives to see, is this a book that you should read? So first, let me give a little bit of a synopsis about what this book is about if you haven't read it. This is a novel. It's a family-driven book where we are meeting 4 sisters. Each chapter is told through a different sister's perspective. But what we learn early on is that one of these 4 sisters has actually passed away. And it's a while before we find out what she passed away from. We learn that there is a history of addiction in this family. The father has dealt with alcoholism. The oldest daughter has dealt with even heroin, where she had to check herself into a rehab facility. The youngest daughter also has dealt with an addiction. And what we end up finding out is that the third oldest daughter, the one that passed away, that she actually passed away from an overdose. But they kind of take a while to share that with us, because the author is really painting the picture about the type of personality that the third daughter had. Her name is Nikki, and Nikki is really painted as this loving, sensitive, I would even say optimistic type of person. Everyone thinks of her as like the core of the family, the core of the sister group. And so you're surprised to find out that she actually passed away from an overdose. And there will be spoilers. There will be spoilers if that's not clear. When we do these book reviews, we're definitely talking about the whole book. And that's why I give 2 months for us to read it if you haven't had a chance. Okay, Mayaya, hi. I don't know if you want me to refer to you as Mayaya or if I can just call you Amy. But you said you gave it 2 stars, but that's not showing up as an option. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Typically, we don't do 2 stars. We do like 1, 3, 4, because they only let us have 4 options. I really didn't even want to do a poll on this. Honestly, I wanted to everybody just write their rating in the chat anyway. So 2 stars is I know that that was your rating. I saw your review. Amy actually put a very thorough review as usual. And it looks like, yeah, so we had 2 votes, 4 stars, 3 stars, and then we had Amy who has given it 2 stars. And so I'm going to actually read Amy's review now that you're here, if that's okay. I'll read parts of it because, like I said, it's very thorough. But I think that this can probably capture a lot of the frustrations that people have about this book. But I'll also talk about a lot of the things that have made this a very popular book. And the ratings on this book, they're almost 4 stars. I think it's like 3.98 or something like that on Goodreads. So it is a book that has a lot of people who love it. So let me pull it up to get to Amy's review. Yeah. You know how to get there? Honestly, if you just type in the title, you can see what my friends have said. Okay. And here we go. Amy. Okay. Amy gave it 2 stars. She said, I had a rough time believing any of the characters were real. They all kind of felt like stereotypical characters you would see on TV, to the point you could predict what they would do. It feels weird that Chidi, one of the most loved characters, is so praised. It also bothered me in the book they called her Chitty. I feel like her name would be pronounced Chidi, but on the audiobook they were pronouncing it Chitty. Chidi used the power imbalance in her relationship for as long as she could. The book even attempted to call her out on it, but never addressed it, and continued to make her a loving and just perfect character. Not to mention that Chidi strategically bought a house to ensure that her client, who became her girlfriend and then her wife, would stay with her within 3 months of meeting her. Yeah, so just to bring you guys, sorry, I can't see what you're looking at. If it's the same words that I'm saying, then yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah, but I already read it, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so what Amy is talking about is that in the book, one of the sisters, the oldest, Avery, the one I talked about, who has dealt with addiction, sent herself to rehab, got clean. At this point, we're meeting her. She's been about 10 years clean. She started meeting with a therapist, and she and the therapist developed feelings for each other, and they ended up falling in love and getting married. And so that was definitely something that was very jarring for any therapist who's reading that. And I think that they did an interesting job in sharing what Chidi was getting out of the relationship and what Avery was getting out of the relationship. Really, they were both looking for home. They were both looking for security, stability. Chidi has a relationship with her mother that was very problematic. Her mother was a very ambitious person who was focused on her career and really didn't put a lot of focus on Chidi or her brother. And Avery grew up in a household where her is the oldest of 4 girls with an alcoholic father and a mother who stayed and didn't necessarily protect them from that situation. She ended up being a parent to her sisters, so both of them were, I think that for Avery, she was looking for someone who can actually provide her with guidance, because she had to figure everything out for herself, and Chidi just looked for someone who would be loyal to her and be with her. And so that was definitely a very, very interesting part of the book. And you're right, they don't talk a lot about it. And I was, for me, even though it's obviously not something that I would do or have any reason to do, the way they described it, I thought that it humanized therapists a little bit. And I actually have an old video, and it's a very for a very niche group about some of the top ethical violations made by therapists. And one of them is stepping into that multiple relationship role and actually dating their clients. I think that the rule that I saw in my ethics book, I feel like it's if someone has not been your client for 5 years, it may be 2, but I think it's 5, then it's okay. And obviously, if you start developing feelings for a client, are you really going to wait 5 years to be with them? I don't know. Like I said, it's not a position I've been in, but I thought that, it does show a lot of people come into therapy because they are trying to understand themselves. They are attracted to the pursuit of understanding themselves, understanding their family. And so a humanized therapist, because it's true. You come in with your own wounds and you're trying to, like, each client is helping you figure out a little bit more of the puzzle of yourself. And so I thought that, even though it's not something that I would support necessarily, it was something that I could understand that Chidi needed. I wish you would have been able to find it outside of a client, of course. But yeah, that power dynamic, that power imbalance definitely existed in their relationship as well. Let me go back to the live to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, you can call me Amy. At this point, I have no idea how to change the name on YouTube. I had to change my name on YouTube recently, and it was a bit of a struggle. You actually have to change your name on Google in general. So your Gmail will be affected, everything will be affected, which is very frustrating. Okay. So I have some questions prepared for you guys based off of some of the quotes in the book. So I'll read the quote and then open up the floor for the questions. Okay, so on page 57, I'm looking at the Kindle version. Everybody might have different versions. On page 57, I have a highlight here. It wasn't the cigarettes that made her feel young again exactly. It was the return to the hidden self, the Avery only she knew. So as we continue talking about Avery, one of the things that we see for her is that after she loses Nikki, she starts unraveling. This is the sister that is supposed to have it all together. She's bought a home. She's living in England, but I'm not sure if it's London. But she's living in England with her wife. She's been sober for 10 years and she has just built this life for herself. She is the parent, parentified child taking care of her siblings. And so for Avery, after Nikki passes away, she's, hyper fixating on certain things like their childhood apartment, and she takes over the mortgage for that, and she's slowly unraveling. And one of the things that she starts doing is smoking cigarettes, which is something that she used to do, and it's something that she's lying to her wife about. She's got this whole routine. She goes outside, she's got gloves, she's got patio. When her wife confronts her about it, she says, oh, it's the people who've been working on our home, the construction workers. And so she has been definitely making it so that, she's created this hidden self, and that she's reveling in it. Another thing that we see that happens with Avery with this hidden self is that she starts stealing. Now, Avery makes a really good living. She's an attorney. But because she is dealing with this overwhelming sense of emotion and loss with her sister, she starts going back to the immediate gratification of shoplifting, something she used to do back when she was struggling. And now that she is doing well, returning back to that side of herself. And then she even goes on to have an affair. Part of Avery's sobriety is that she goes to Alcoholics Anonymous. She meets a young poet there, and they end up having a sexual relationship. He knows that she's married. He doesn't really care. He's all about pleasure. And so with Avery, she has just completely become a separate self. You got the high achieving version of her who is judgmental and trying to help her sisters and trying to, convince her parents not to sell their childhood apartment. And then you have this other version of her that's a complete mess, that's falling apart. And so the first question that I have for you guys is, have you ever experienced a version of yourself, that hidden self? And was there any pleasure in that for you? Or if you don't want to share about your experience, if you've seen that or if that's come to light, or can you just understand that? Go to the next one. Can you see? What can you see? Did you go to the next one? Okay. Yeah. So the question around the are you able to see the side of the PowerPoint so you can go to the right ones at the right time?
Yeah, but I didn't skip the first one.
I just wrote questions.
Okay.
They're, but I'm saying, can you see them on the side so that you can click the right one?
It's tiny.
Okay. Okay. So have you ever experienced anything similar to Avery's hidden self, and was there pleasure in it? Thank you, Cheyenne. I'm gonna get back to making some videos as well. It's definitely time. I started this week. I got a couple of shorts out, and now we're doing the live. And I'm gonna get back to some filmed videos. I was actually trying to see like what are people watching right now, so I can maybe do some breakdowns. But I feel like there's not really a lot of reality TV happening right now, and I'm totally fine doing scripted series, but I'm not sure what everybody's interested in. So I'm gonna do a community tab post tomorrow to see about finding out what people want me to do videos on. But people did put a request in for taking care of your mental health while being a caretaker. So I'm going to work on that first, and then I'll start doing some kind of breakdown. But thank you, Cheyenne, for welcoming back. I'm glad to have you here. So have you all ever experienced a hidden self? And I think about this, you know, when I think about like being in my teenage years, I think about how like I would say I'm going to a friend's house and really I'm going to my boyfriend's house, for example. And maybe I could have, you know, it's funny, like when you're the oldest and then you see how your younger siblings are when they're your age. My sister, she would just say, like, yeah, I'm going here and not care. But me, I was always so worried about disappointing my dad and, you know, just making him feel like I was a bad kid. So I would, you know, instead of just being honest, I would lie. And so that's what I think about when I think about returning to the hidden self. I feel like there can be a pleasure in that because, you know, it's that feeling of getting away with something. And I think that for a person like Avery, who might be feeling emotionally depleted in that moment, to have the immediate gratification of getting away with something, fooling people, I thought that that was a really interesting thing to include in the book. And that's something we talk about a lot. You know, there are rich people who shoplift. This is something that, you know, sometimes it makes the media because it's like, why would you be stealing? But it's that feeling of, you know, being able to do something without permission that gives some people gratification. So I thought that was a really interesting thing for them to incorporate in the story. Cheyenne said Extracted. Is that a show? Is that a movie? I haven't heard of that. Extracted? I'll look into that. Thanks. Okay, so let's go to that first one then. So another thing that I want to talk about is that what we learn is that with Nikki, the reason that she ends up overdosing is because she's dealing with significant pain with endometriosis. I believe that was her diagnosis. I'm pretty sure it was endometriosis. And she was basically in a position where she was dealing with so much pain that she started becoming reliant on painkillers and ends up overdosing. It makes a lot of sense because what we do see is that when you're dealing a lot of times with especially issues with reproduction, you know, women's health issues, that there's not a ton of research that is funding solutions for these problems. And a lot of times doctors do not take them seriously. So many people I know who just get prescribed birth control pills, for example, for everything. And sometimes the birth control pills actually exacerbate the issue. And so I loved that they incorporated endometriosis into the story. I'm curious for you, especially Amy, when you were reading this part about endometriosis, was that a striking incorporation in for you, or did you see that in any other books that you've read before? Anna says, I found it interesting to see it shown in the book as it's not discussed very frequently. It's really not. Anytime I see books that are talking about periods or female reproductive health, I'm always really I champion those books because even if the story isn't necessarily great, it's bringing awareness to issues that are not talked a lot about. Other books that have talked about this, or not necessarily endometriosis, but Abby Jimenez's book, I think it's called her very first book, The Friend Zone. Yeah, The Friend Zone. In that book, she talks about someone having, really bad periods to the point where they want to, I think, get a hysterectomy. I won't spoil anything about that book, but that was one that resonated with me. Actually, Colleen Hoover, she had a book about infertility, or that talked about infertility. It was called All Your Perfects. I read that years ago, but whenever I read stories that incorporate those sorts of things into the narrative, I appreciate that, because there's just not a lot of media that highlights these issues. So that contributes to the lack of awareness and research to help address them. So I was really appreciative that they included it. Okay. Monica says, when my really good friend lost someone really close to her, she did a lot of partying, a lot of drugs. It was a complete 180 from the really put together person she was prior. Yeah, and I'm curious about her age too, because I have had clients who talk to me about really low periods in their life. A lot of them, and it's so interesting, for a lot of them, they were in college. And it's so interesting to see, like, at this pivotal moment in your life where it feels like it can make or break the success of your life. Once you're in college, they might experience a loss that creates this sense of, like, needing to almost kind of go overboard on pleasure. And college is a space where it is so easy to do that. I mean, you could go to a party every day if you want to. Drugs are accessible. Sex is accessible. It's something that, you have a lot of easy access to in college. And when we talk about the last sister, Lucky, she's a model. So for her, of course, she has a lot of access to drugs, sex. She, is able to get invited to situations where that really fuel and feed her addiction. Let's see. So the next question I had, let me go through my quotes. I don't know why it keeps going down to the bottom. Well, let me see first. Let me go through these quotes. Okay, yeah, that is the question. Okay, but first, okay, so on page 119, chapter 6, and Avery's chapter says what it was like to have sisters. Against their parents, against the world at large, they were fiercely allied, but among themselves, everything was a competition. There was never enough attention, never enough money, never enough love to go around. So they fought for every scrap. I thought that was a beautiful quick snapshot of how sibling relationships can look. And I was curious for you guys, what is your view on a sibling relationship? Do you believe that it's stronger than the parent-child relationship? Because what we see a lot of times is that, people with their siblings, either like that's their best friend or their worst enemy. I see that so much in my practice. I'm curious if you guys see those extremes as well. And so it's so true. It's like, against the outside world, if you see your sibling getting bullied, or if someone's talking about them, you stand up for them, but then at home, you're competing. There's only so many resources to go around, and the more kids you have, the more limited the resources are for each child. And so you're trying to be in your parents' good graces. It's like survival instinct, so that you can get the attention you need, the money you need, like all of the things that every child craves. And so I wanted to know for you guys, how do you view the difference between a sibling relationship versus a parent-child relationship? Do you think that the sibling relationship is typically stronger than the parent-child relationship or not? Monica said best friend or worst enemy or both at the same time. So real. I'll talk about, some of you have seen my sister on here. She's been on live with me. We did the Midnight Library together. And we, are definitely very close, but also like Nobody can really get under my skin like my sister. She's done this thing the last few years on her birthday where she wants to go on a trip, just the two of us. Nobody else can come. It started out because one year she was going with her friends, and I was like, I'd like to go with you to celebrate your birthday. She said, okay, you can come. And then all the friends backed out last minute, ended up being just the two of us. And then every year since then, she was like, it's just us two. And, on those trips, I always like to reflect on the experience, because there's always at least that one moment of like, I'm not going to survive this trip. I'm not going to make it, where you get so frustrated, so overwhelmed. Like, you return to what it was like when you were kids. We don't have a lot of the tools that we have as adults now, where, you wouldn't go off on your boss, but that sibling just brings out that energy. And I think about Bo and family systems. That's one of the marriage and family therapy models. And there's an exercise in there called like going back home, something like that, where it's like, okay, so you feel like you've made all this progress, all this growth. Let's see how you do when you return to your family of origin, when you return back home. Are you able to still rely on those tools, those coping mechanisms? How do you deal with that anxiety when you're in that system? And so I definitely think the sibling relationships can be so, so triggering, but also, the rebound time hopefully is pretty quick. Because with my sister and I, it's like, I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated. I mean, the first time we did it, we ended up in actually, I was the main one doing the screaming, to be totally honest with you. A screaming match. And I remember walking off. We were in DC. I was like, I'm just leaving. I'm walking the street by myself. Phone's about to die. I mean, there were some concerning people asking me like, oh, do you need a charger? Like, no, I'm good. Just being so irresponsible from being frustrated. But I think by the time we calmed down from that situation, we were just talking it over, and I was so proud of us. I'm like, wow, like, this is the difference between how we are now versus when we were kids, that I can actually say, hey, I was triggered in this moment because of this. And she can say, I can understand why you were triggered, but here's what was actually happening. And I could hear that, so it was so good to just see like, wow, there's a lot of potential for actually seeing your growth in these situations. Because in some of those moments, I'm like, there's no coming back from this. There's no, like, I mean, screaming at the top of our lungs just to end up apologizing, hugging it out, and just being proud that we made it through another tough moment and we're still close. Let me see what you guys are saying, because the chat is going off. Okay, so Anna says, I identified a lot with those passages. For me, it really is a bond like no other. Ray be reading. Hi, Ray. This is my friend, you guys. Follow her on YouTube. Yes, sibling relationships are stronger. You usually have the common thread of sharing that growth and experience. Yeah, definitely. Cheyenne says, I think sibling bonds are usually stronger than parent-child. There's just something unspoken. Anna says, my sister, 32, and I, 24, read the book about a week apart. Oh, see, this is what I wanted. I actually was telling my sister, I want you to read this book, because I felt like we could really talk about it together. Each one marked our favorite parts with different colors. Anna, I love that. It was the same book. Like, you guys had the actual same physical copy, and you did that. I love that. Brianna Scallion says, it depends on the relationship. I agree with Monica for sure. My relationship with my sister is different than my relationship with my parents. Anna, it was very bonding to go through it and see which parts resonated with her the most. Same from her side, and the ones that made a lot of sense to both of us. It was a very bonding experience. Colleen says, my siblings are the closest people to me. It seems the older we get, the closer we become. Monica N says, the repair is great. Yeah, it's so rewarding. Like, when you get to that point of, we're able to fix this, we can talk about this, we can learn from this, because I can say that was years ago when we had that huge blow up. This year when we went on our trip, I started there. That first day we were overstimulated. There was issues with the Airbnb, we were just dealing with a lot. And, I asked the question and she got snappy with me, and I was just like, I can't remember what I said. I think it was like something like, I don't know. I was like, either I said like, you're hurting my feelings, or, okay, you can just answer me. You don't have to snap on me or whatever. And then, when we 5 minutes later we were able to really just sit there and talk about it, and she said, I'm so sorry, I'm just really overstimulated. I'm like, it's okay, I'm also overstimulated. And that was pretty much the extent of our frustrations on this trip. We had one more moment, but that one was really nothing at all. So I was like, okay, we're getting better every year, this little sister retreat, we're getting better and better at communicating. And you can end that poll, babe. You can start the next poll too if you want to. Okay, Brianna said, but maybe because I'm a baby sis, I can definitely tell a difference in our relationship than when we were kids. Yeah, that's what you want to see, though. You want to see the change. I'm hoping it's a good change, Brianna. Is it good or bad? Monica says, sibling relationships are like being in the trenches with a common enemy, but like being too close and poking each other with your bayonets. Now, I will say something I also thought about is that your siblings are the only people who have experienced the same household that you have. So you make friends along the way. Those friends, you have to explain your lore to them. You've got to explain to them about what has happened in your life, why you are the way you are, and you only have so much insight yourself. And with your siblings, with your parents, they have their own siblings. They have the people they grew up in a household with, right? So they've known you your whole life, but you haven't known them their whole life. There's so much to their story that you'll never know, or even if you hear it from them, you will never experience. But with your siblings, when you're dealing with, your parents getting sick or getting older, or you're dealing with, issues from your childhood that you're still processing, those siblings are the only people who can really speak to that experience. And I think that's what really bonds us. Even more than your spouse, right? Your spouse, you develop this very intentional relationship with them. But again, you have to explain things. You're still figuring out things. Your siblings can explain things to you. Like, there are times where I'll talk to my sister about dreams I'm having, and she's like, yeah, well, do you think that's related to XYZ? And I'm like, yeah, I didn't think about that, but that's true. And she's the only person who could ask me that because she's the only person who knows. I wouldn't even think to answer it. Okay, so let's see. Which sister resonated the most with you? Avery was number one. Okay, so do we have a lot of oldest siblings in the chats? I'm thinking that. I think that I attract I've even noticed all my friends are the oldest, even from when I was, little. Pre-K. All of my best friends have always been the oldest. My husband is the oldest. Both of my parents are, well, my dad is not technically the oldest, but he acts like the oldest. He's like the second oldest. And my mom is the oldest. And my sister was the only baby in our house. She's the only person who's the youngest. And so I tend to attract a lot of people who are the oldest. So I'm curious how many of you are the oldest. Brianna said, depends on the day, but definitely better. Okay, I'm glad that it's, for the most part, it's better. Raby reading, yes, agree. Your siblings often know things about you that you don't even realize. Yeah, your siblings can read you. Your siblings can really, there's times that I was telling a story a certain way, and my sister would be like, you see it like this, but this is how I remember it. And I remember there were years we saw a situation completely differently. And at some point I realized, wait, I think she's right. I tend to sometimes not want to own how tragic a situation is. And I just gloss past it. And my sister was like, no, that was abuse, or that was trauma. And I'm like, was it? And then I reflect later, I'm like, she's totally right. But sometimes it could take me years. And same thing with her. She might see a situation in a certain way, and then I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't see it like that. And she gets frustrated with me. And after a while, it's like, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I see a little differently now. So yeah, your siblings have insight that you don't always have. Oldest attract oldest, maybe. I think so. That's been my experience. I definitely seem to always be around people who are the oldest. Millennial Stray says, I'm second to youngest. Okay. Second to youngest out of how many? Okay, so let me look here. Oh yeah. Oh gosh, I can't wait till we get to the section on their mom. We might be getting there. What do you see as the next question? Oh, okay. Yeah, so we'll get to that first. Okay. So on page 125, again, I'm in the Kindle version. There is a quote here that says, I believe that everything happens, she said, period, or full stop, as you would say. That's it. Things happen and we have to learn to live with them. As long as suicide is off the table, that is. If we can find meaning in them, fine. But even if we can't, we still have to live with them. The meaning is an afterthought, an anesthesia. Happens is the only word in that statement that's empirical. The rest is whatever helps you sleep at night. Okay, I actually want to read that again because I just feel like I really want us to dig into your thoughts on this. Okay, I believe that everything happens, she said, period, or full stop, as you would say. That's it. Things happen and we have to learn to live with them. As long as suicide is off the table, that is. If we can find meaning in them, fine. But even if we can't, we still have to live with them. The meaning is an afterthought, an anesthesia. Happens is the only word in that statement that's empirical. The rest is whatever helps you sleep at night. Okay, so that takes me to my next question. Do you believe that everything happens for a reason? This is a very big question, but I want to know for you all, just looking at the experiences of your life or what you've seen, do you believe that everything happens for a reason? As you can see, this character in this passage does not believe that. Okay. Oh, you said millennial stray. We were a total of 5 kids. Wow, second to youngest. You okay? So you might be and then Anna says youngest, but it's only me and her. Yeah, it's only me and my sister as well. Well, now I have a couple of step siblings as well, but our parents got married when we were all grown, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, so we were a total of 5 kids. Okay, so we've got some youngest in here too. I'm glad to know that, it's not only oldest in here. And I feel like a majority of the people I end up having relationships with are the oldest, or maybe like second oldest. That's usually the youngest I attract friend wise. Okay, so do you believe that everything happens for a reason? I think historically I have felt that way, but I think there are things that I'm going through in this season of life where I can't be in that place. I just can't say this happened for a reason. Sometimes there's actually, for me, relief in just being like, this just happened. I don't have to make any bigger meaning of it. Sometimes it's stressful, like trying to read and make bigger meaning of things, because it's like I'm almost like gaslighting myself into, if this didn't happen, this didn't happen. There have been so many times where I'm like, oh, this is all lining up perfectly. Like, that's how I know that, this is meant to be. And then things fall through and it's like, okay, so what was all of that optimism and all that certainty I had before? And so I'm getting to a stage where I'm just like, maybe everything doesn't happen for a reason. Maybe we just learn to deal with what happens. And I'm curious how you all feel about that. Okay, Millennial Stray says, I don't believe that phrase as it is. I think that things happen and you change because of them. I don't think things happen to shape me in any way. I totally agree with that. I think that with any situation or most situations, we can choose to grow from them. We can choose to learn from them. But I don't think that the situations are necessarily designed to do that for us. And I know this is actually tap dancing more along a spiritual or religious line. So feel free to bring that into the conversation if that, was a part of why you see things that way. That is totally welcome in this space. I just think for me, I'm just at a place right now where I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if I can really say things happen for a reason. I can look at things and take something from it and learn. But if that didn't happen, I could do the same thing. I could take something from the opposite and learn and grow as well. So I agree with you, Millennial Stray. And it says, I identify with it. For me, the idea of having to find meaning was never something I thought much about. I feel like things will happen and you just find joy in the things that are important to you. Yeah. You find joy, and sometimes if there's no joy to be found, you find the lesson. You can find it, but I don't know if it's necessarily designed to give it to you. So I do agree with that. And I agree with you. To me, it's a relief thinking things don't necessarily have to have a meaning. Maybe why I love watching videos about the universe, seeing how small we are is somehow comforting. Yeah, I think, I should probably do that because we do get so centered on ourselves and our experiences. And a lot of times we put ourselves in positions where, because we're putting ourselves as the center of our universe, like we take things so personally, when in reality, sometimes it's just biology. Sometimes it's just happened, it's just science. It's just, things just happen. It's not always necessarily something worth delving into and trying to find the hidden meaning of everything. That's just where I'm at. I know that's a kind of cynical view. That's just where I'm at right now, just being totally honest with you all. Millennial Stray says, I will say I believe in souls being recycled, and whatever issue you keep crossing in life is for a reason and something your soul needs finishing to become whole. The challenge with that for me is thinking about how, if that's the case, like we don't have the memory of the past soul. So it's like, you're starting at a disadvantage trying to finish that work when you don't even know it's work that needs to be done. So like every body inhabiting that soul is now dealing with the same stressors. That idea is scary to me. Brianna says, I typically agree. However, in this phase, I'm learning to look bigger than my universe or perspective. Yeah. And I think that is a healthy exercise. I think if we can minimize ourselves, like it might make things less personal. I'm in a stage of life where I am chasing less personal. I don't want to be so burdened by the things that I experience. So yeah, thank you guys for contributing to that conversation, because I know it's kind of personal. Really appreciate that. Okay, let's move on down. I'm doing pretty good with quotes and questions because you guys know I typically struggle because I go on a bit of a tangent and then we don't get anywhere near the end of the book. So let me see. What'd you say? Okay, yeah, we're gonna get to that. Okay, good. So we're getting to that then. Okay, so that's interesting. So you guys are saying that the person that resonated the most with you is Avery, but also the person that frustrated you the most is Avery. That is so real. I think I can agree with that. I think the scene that really, really made me be so frustrated with Avery is the scene where she decides to like tell Bonnie and Lucky off and is like unapologetic about it. And it seems like she almost looked at that as like her growth moment because she was just telling the truth. That's where I got really frustrated because she affected Lucky's sobriety. It's almost like she wanted her sisters to not be doing as well as her. So she almost sabotaged them. Okay, so here we go. Chapter 12. I'm doing a lot from Avery's perspective, I see. So that tells me a lot too about who resonated the most with me. Do you guys feel like Avery was the main character of this book? Because when I think about it, I feel like Bonnie's storyline definitely felt like a side storyline. We did learn a lot about Lucky, but I think Avery might be the only person who had an actual arc. So I'm curious if you guys think Avery is the main character of the book. Millennial Stray says, like a video game, we will get it right one of these times. From your mouth to God's ears, get it right one of these times is so true. Amy says, I'm 3 out of 4, but I feel like the oldest. That's real. I very much believe that life is what you make of it. And while there are some things you can't control how to react and overcome and grow. Totally agree. Millennial Stray says, I am going through a breakup and people saying he was meant to be a lesson really hurt because it's like giving meaning to my pain. I just wanted to suck and move on. I feel you. I think that is exactly where I'm at right now. Like, people say that because I think so many people are uncomfortable sitting in grief, especially another person's grief. And so they try to like quickly get you to that silver lining. I'm not sure how many of you have seen, I'm not sure if it was a TED talk, but Brene Brown did a talk where it was completely animated and she talks about the difference between sympathy and empathy. I talk about this every now and then because it's just like such a striking visual. But basically sympathy is like, you know, you're trying to get somebody to the silver lining and it's really dismissive. You know, you're like, well, at least you can. She gives some really great examples in that talk where somebody's like, I think my husband's cheating on me. And if somebody's like, at least you're married. And somebody's like, I just had a miscarriage. At least you can get pregnant. And then somebody was like, oh, such and such is failing school. Like, at least your child can read. You know, it's just like you're trying to quickly get a person to the silver lining instead of just saying, honestly, I don't know what to say, but I'm here with you. Or I've been in a similar place and it sucks. What can I do? Right? It's not about trying to make someone quickly feel better. And I've become very, very frustrated with that. I think it's something I had to turn off as a therapist because people don't come to you so that you can tell them why their problems aren't that important. They come to you to be validated in those problems, and eventually they'll see their own way out if there is a way out. Sometimes there isn't. I've had clients who are dealing with, you know, spouses who are dying. You can't change that. So I have to be able to sit here with you for that. I can't tell you to just get over that or that it's going to be okay or they're going to be miraculously cured, right? So I'm totally with you. I don't like, especially if I give my pain meaning, that's me. If you're trying to give my pain meaning, that's you being uncomfortable with my pain. And if that's the case, just step back and let other people support me. Millennial Stray says, yes, you'll be better off. I think you'll be happier. Excuse me, I am heartbroken. I don't want to speak about that. Yes, I'm right there with you. Millennial Stray says, the best thing a friend has said was, all I can say is that I'm so sorry that this is happening. That's all it takes. That's really all it takes. Just be a listening ear. So I can't imagine that. I hate that you're going through that. Just be there, listen. You don't have to fix it. Monica says, I think they all had an arc. Lucky not numbing, Bonnie expressing her feelings, Avery being her own person, but the message of the book comes through explicitly through Avery's chapters. Okay, so maybe that's why I'm drawn to them. They do all have an arc, but I feel like Avery's might be the most drastic because you know what I really hated? Jumping to the end, in the epilogue, like the fact that Lucky's in rehab. Like, am I reading that right? Like, she's in rehab, right? So it's like, I think that's realistic. That's definitely realistic. You know, addiction's not like one and done fixed, but you know, it was 10 years later, something like that. So the fact that she's actively in rehab and leaving, you know, kind of skirting the system, to me, that felt like some of the same behaviors that we saw at the beginning. Okay. What was I looking at? Oh, yes. Okay. So now we're going to talk about their mom. Okay. So chapter 12, Avery. Now, Avery, part of her arc is that she has never really held her mom accountable for staying with their dad, you know, and subjecting them to living with an alcoholic. And so she decides to go visit her mom, and she ends up confronting her. And her mom's response was, you're too old to be blaming your parents for your problems. That get out of jail free card has expired. Another quote is her mom, you know, because her mom is really like denying the dad's alcoholism. Even though he's actively in rehab, that's why he's not there when Avery goes to visit her. And she says, "You think your dad's drinking was bad? My dad's was worse." Now, this scene did kind of have a happy ending. And she, she loved on her. And Avery was talking about how all of the sisters, part of the reason why they're dealing with the grief that they're dealing with is because they all kind of blamed themselves for their sister's death by either they didn't notice that she was addicted to the pills that she was taking for her endometriosis, or they did notice and didn't push it. Like, they're all dealing with they all have their moment where they feel like they could have changed that outcome. And her mom says at the end to her, "Listen to me," she said. "I want you to really listen." She put her mouth next to Avery's ear to speak in a fierce whisper. "You are not that important." And I thought, there's one reading of that that's really cruel, but there's another reading of that where there is such a freedom. Because Avery truly believes that it was her responsibility to take care of her sisters. So to have this sister, die from an overdose at that, Avery, an addict who saw some of the signs, she talks about noticing her sister's pupils and, how her reactions weren't the same. She takes a lot of responsibility for that. And just telling her, like, you were not that important. You could not make that difference or that change for her. I thought that was actually like a heartwarming moment. I remember my mom saying nothing, it was not that deep, but I just remember one thing I used to do when I talk about the hidden self, I felt like my dad was like so strict about boys, even though he probably wasn't that strict, but I really didn't want him to think I was like fast and loose, which I wasn't at that point, but I just really didn't want him to think that. And so I remember telling my mom, like, I'm really worried. Like, when I was dating my husband, I did not want my dad to have any clue where he lived. I remember one time, like, going out of my way because we all went to out of town for Thanksgiving, and I did not want my dad to take him home. And I had to wake up early in the morning the next day. Everybody knew. And my dad was like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, I'm taking him home. And I remember talking to my mom about it and being like, I don't want daddy following me and, pulling up on me with my boyfriend. I remember mom being like, "Girl, your dad is not obsessed with you like that." Now, he did it before, but granted, the boy lived super close, so it was like no effort. But I found a lot of freedom in her telling me that. I was like, okay. So eventually, like after maybe 4 or 5 years together, I let my dad know where he lived. But I went out of my way. I even missed out on some opportunities for like him to see me performing and stuff because of that. Not the same, but just to say that there was that. But going back to those earlier quotes from her mom being like, "You're too old to be blaming your parents for your problems. That get out of jail card has expired." Let's talk about that, you guys. I have a question for you. How do you feel about the conversation around blaming your parents for everything versus holding your parents accountable? And what does accountability look like? Let's have a real conversation about this, because I really feel like right now, the way we look at everything is like, we're very much in an era of like, cut everybody off. Everybody's toxic. Everybody's a narcissist. And that's not to negate people who really are having those experiences, but it's just, right now it's like, we're talking about it so much more. And it's, I hear this from a lot of people. And when I ask, what is making you say that, and they describe it to me, a lot of times that's not the qualifier for narcissism. That's an actual diagnosis. And it's not just because every person you don't like or every ex you've had is not a narcissist. Not to say there aren't narcissists, but just to say we're over diagnosing in pop culture. And so I just want to know, for you guys, what are your thoughts on this conversation? Blaming your parents for everything versus holding parents accountable. Babe, can you scoot that over a little bit? The fact that one quotation is not showing is like bothering me. And what does accountability look like? Okay, so let me read some of your comments. You guys, thank you so much for being so open in these comments and sharing your experience. Like, these lives would be absolutely nothing without you. So anytime you're thinking to yourself, oh, I don't know if I should share that, Please do. I love, love, love having you guys contribute. I walk away from these lives feeling like just so high. Like my energy was so low today, and right now I'm just on a high just because I'm talking with you guys. Okay. I know millennial straight. I know exactly what you're saying, damn, too. Anna said that conversation was very difficult to read. While it makes you understand the mom's perspective, it also is so frustrating looking at it from Avery's side, not getting the reassurance from her mom. And and her mom was so honest. Like another quote I didn't read is when her mom was like, she knew she wanted to be a wife, but she didn't want to be a mother. But I think like they were Catholic, and so they didn't use birth control and ended up having 4 kids. That's also hard to hear. Like, so the person who's my mom never wanted to be a mother is just wild to think about. Anna said, but that last line, "you're not so important," resonated so much for me. Yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Like one of you, I'm not sure if it was you, Anna, talking about like, looking at videos of the universe and just reminding yourself we're so small, because we do give a lot of importance to the things that we do and the things that happen to us. And sometimes it is freeing to just be like, I'm just one of so many people and I'm not here forever. I think there is a freedom in that. Millennial Stray says, my mom is a narcissistic, possibly BPD in therapy. I have grown empathy for why she maybe is who she is, but I'm sorry, that does not make my pain and damage caused by her null and void. Absolutely agree. I think that there is a difference between developing a sense of empathy and understanding and, also holding a boundary. If you feel confident that a person in your life is just contributing to pain, it does not, the benefits and the risk of engaging with that person just don't weigh up. I mean, don't even out, or the benefits are not more than the cons. I agree with you. You have to do what you have to do to take care of yourself. I think what I find is that for some people, because so much the message is like, just cut everybody off. Like, I know a lot of people who are actually suffering because of that. They feel so lonely, so isolated, because they feel like they don't have a community, they don't have a village, no support. And then there are people who want to support them and love them, but those people have been cut off. And so sometimes we don't leave enough room for reconciliation or growth, but sometimes a person shows you they are completely unwilling to make any changes or see their role in the issues that are taking place. And if that's the case, then yeah, you got to do what you have to do to protect yourself. I just tried not to rush there, but if I mean, this is your mother, you've been dealing with her your whole life. No contact, I respect it. Monica says, we all want the people who hurt us to take accountability for it, recognize they hurt us, take steps to be better in the future, but we can't control what other people do. We control ourselves. Exactly. We can't control what other people do. And you have to ask yourself, is it worth, if I do have to put this strong boundary in place, can I survive it? Can I survive it? If you feel like, I'm going to be able to in this relationship and thrive because of it, and even if it's hard, you have to be able to take that risk. I feel like, sometimes I see like a repetitive pattern with some people. You cut off this person, you get really close to somebody else, you cut that next person off, you get really close to somebody else, you cut that next person off, and we are losing the art of having conversations with people. And those are the times where I say we have to reflect, because if it's a pattern, you're going to feel very, very lonely. You have to keep starting over. At that point, we have to hold ourselves accountable. But if it's a specific person and this person is completely unwilling to make changes or hear me out, then you have to do what you have to do so that you can make the best of the one life that we get to live. Is it Denia? I hope I'm getting that right. Denia Miller. I found it helpful in the past 2 years of my own journey to let 2 things be true at once. My mom didn't have the tools she needed when raising me, and she is still not doing her work. That's so true. She did her best, and I needed more. Yep. Anna says, I feel like the accountability comes in from understanding why something is the way it is, how your parents impacted you, but putting in the work to improve and not follow the same destructive path. That is such a great point. Millennial Straight said, I totally agree. I have been one to cut people off the second they hurt me, but I'm growing and realizing that people are imperfect and they are more than their mistakes. But my mom is bad. It makes sense that you did that because, you know, you probably didn't do that for so long with your mom that you just learned this is the only way I can protect myself. But everybody is not that initial person that hurt us. I've talked about it many times before, but my relationship with my mom was not super healthy. You know, I grew up in what I now am able to say is an abusive environment. It's still hard for me to say that. But it's so interesting because I know her story. I know exactly why she was doing that. My mom has passed on now. It's been over 10 years now. But I knew why she was doing that. You know, I know the stories about her mother pulling out guns on her and just the things that she had to experience. And I tried, and I don't know, you know, if she was still living today, I don't know where our relationship would be. I feel like it was improving, but I really don't know. So I totally get that. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm judging any of you who've had to make that tough call. I'm proud of you all for whatever decisions you've had to make that took courage. Sometimes that is saying, I'm just not going to have a mother, even if they're living. And sometimes that's saying, I'm going to, you know, step out of my comfort zone and actually communicate what the problem is and give a person an opportunity to work on it. Now, my dad, on the other hand, is like the complete opposite. I could talk to my dad about pretty much anything. It could be the most trivial thing and say, you know, this really bothered me or this really hurt me. And he's always going to listen and he's always going to put in an effort for behavioral change. Like, and it's usually nothing very serious, but it's enough where it's like, because he had to be pretty much both parents growing up, there's a lot of pressure on him to be perfect, you know? And so I appreciate with him, like I can talk to him about anything and he'll be open to hearing it. And it's always been like that since I was a kid. So it's definitely something that I find to be, you know, it kind of showed me what was possible with one parent and not the other. Let's see. Monica says 100% deny it. Two things can be true. Yeah, that's in dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. They don't even allow the word but. Everything's and, because it's both and. Accepting two truths. You don't have to disqualify one truth with another, even if they're seemingly contradictory. So that's a very healthy take to be able to say that two things are true. Thank you, Millennial Stray. Our parents did the best they could do with what they had, and we are doing the same. If it's perfect or not, I guess we'll see. Denia Miller that I choose to engage in a relationship with who my mom actually is, not who I want her to be. Do I want more? Yes, but she's not able to give me that. And that's, you know, just recognizing those limits sometimes too, it just gives us fuel and knowledge around how we can be better parents. That's what I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to taking what I learned not to do and some things, admitting that there are some things I learned from my mom that I should do. That's something she did very well. And being able to apply that to my parenting, I think that's going to be very healing for me, is to restructure that parent-child relationship through my parenting. Denia says, I'm 33 and halfway through my master's in counseling. These classes are dragging my inner child. The graduate like that is the most humbling experience when you go through graduate school for mental health and you're like, I want to save all these people. And then you're reading this stuff and you're like, I need to save myself. That was like my rude awakening of recognizing like, wow, every time I read about this, like this reminds me of my household growing up. And it's so humbling, but it also really makes you a great therapist because you're able to recognize things that happened to you and how you responded to it in your clients. And I love the opportunity to, you know, I don't really share my story with my clients, but I can see myself in some of my clients and I'm like, I can see what's happening here. I can't push you. I can't push them. But I can make a mental note and we can work toward that realization of what's really going on. Millennial says, I am starting a DBT session next week. Ooh, are you starting it as like you're conducting it or are you starting it like you're going to be in it? Brianna says, I agree with Anna. Accountability comes in from understanding why something is the way it is, but I also understand giving grace. We had a great relationship with our parents, but they did the best. Brianna says, we had a great childhood, but it's not until recently I uncovered the trauma in therapy and going through a healing journey. Doesn't that suck when you feel like I had a great childhood and then it's like, did I? That's the hard part, because I was in serious denial about my upbringing, and it really did take my sister being like, do you remember this? Do you remember that? And eventually kind of being like, yeah, that's true. Yeah, so we see that Avery is the person that resonated the most with people and frustrated people the most. Okay, so a lot of us are on the same page with that. Second up, Nikki, and yeah, Nikki, I thought, she almost wasn't relatable because she was almost too perfect, right? But I also did relate to her as well and her desires. Let me see. Do I have any more on there, or is that the last one? Yeah. Okay, great. You guys, we got to the end. Woohoo! Thank you guys so much for participating in this conversation. It's 4 segments, 7 weeks each. I think that's going to be awesome. I feel like sometimes, like as a therapist, I would like to be a part of group therapy as a client, just so that I can like get that experience. But sometimes it's like, I think it's going to be a challenge because I'll be so familiar with the exercises and things that I think it'll be hard to take off my therapist hat and just relax into it as a client, but I don't know. Okay, so now let's talk about our next book. So I really like to do these votes in here with you guys because you're the ones who are at the live, you're communicating with me. I want to make sure that we're reading stuff that you care about. So I did a poll on Goodreads, and I did it on there because, we have like over 800 or 900 people in there, so I can really get a good idea about what topics you guys want us to read about. So I put on there family relationships, romantic. Oh, babe, can you pull up the poll? Oh, the book? I'm done with quotes. Oh yeah, okay, great. But also just start another one and go to polls. In the group, you just click on polls and you'll see it. But I asked about romantic relationships, family relationships, work-life balance, and anxiety. Do you know how to get to it? You got to go to groups. Right now, you're in the book. Oh, I'm behind. Okay. Yeah. So, what won? Let me just make sure that's still what won. I hope so, because I went through and like did a lot of research to find books to meet the winner. If it changed, I'm gonna have to like take it offline. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for being here and participating. Okay. All right. Yeah. So click on show results of the top one. Okay. Let's see. It's delayed for me, guys. I could have just clicked on it myself so I could see, but now it should be coming up. Oh no, it's very delayed. Okay. Community groups. Poll. Okay. Yeah. So anxiety won. I just did this poll quickly yesterday, and actually, if you didn't get an email about the poll, I'm sorry. Like Goodreads was really glitching yesterday. I went through 3 times to select everybody in the book club, which is a challenge because they only let me do 100 people per page. And like I said, it's like now we have like 9 pages worth, and so I got to the end of that, and it didn't let me send it. Then at the end, I was like, your poll has been sent to 146 people, like 146. So everybody didn't get this. But anxiety is what won. So I have 3 options for us to choose from tonight to pick our next book. And oh, you do? Well, first we need to show them what each book is before they vote. And our next meeting is going to be, we do this every other month. It's going to be the last Tuesday in July, which is July 29th at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. That's going to be our next meeting, July 29th at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you about the different books. Okay. I'm marking it on my calendar as well. Okay. Did you pull up the different books? Oh, you have? Oh, yeah, I'm ready. Okay. Okay, you guys. All right. So our first book that we're looking at, you went with Rewire Your Anxious Brain? Okay. So this book is actually 10 years old. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I know some people prefer to look at like the newest literature. So keep that in mind. Rewire Your Anxious Brain, How to Use the Neuroscience of Fear to End Anxiety, Panic, and Worry by Catherine Pittman and Elizabeth Carl. It says, do you ever wonder what is happening inside your brain when you feel anxious, panicked, and worried? And Rewire Your Anxious Brain, psychologist Catherine Pittman and author Elizabeth Carl offer a unique evidence-based solution to overcoming anxiety based in cutting-edge neuroscience and research. In the book, you will learn how the amygdala and cortex, both important parts of the brain, are essential players in the neuropsychology of anxiety. The amygdala acts as a primal response, and oftentimes when this part of the brain processes fear, you may not even understand why you are afraid. By comparison, the cortex is the center of worry, that is obsessing, ruminating, and dwelling on things that may or may not happen. In the book, Pittman and Carl make it simple by offering specific examples of how to manage fear by tapping into both of these pathways in the brain. As you read, you'll gain a greater understanding how anxiety is created in the brain, and as a result, you'll feel empowered and motivated to overcome it. The brain is a powerful tool, and the more you work to change the way you respond to fear, the more resilient you will become. Using the practical self-assessments and proven effective techniques in the book, you will learn to literally rewire the brain processes that lie at the root of your fears. Okay, so that's our first option. The next option is a book called The Book of Hope. This book was published in 2021. It says, from the best advice you'll ever get to the joy of crisps, the 101 brilliant contributors to the Book of Hope will help you find hope whenever you need it most. Award-winning mental health campaigner Johnny Benjamin, MBE, and co-editor Britt Pfluger bring together people from all walks of life, actors, musicians, athletes, psychologists, and activists to share what gives them hope. These 101 keys in the field of mental health, from the likes of Lim Sissay, Dame Kelly Holmes, Frank Turner, and Zoe Sugg, to Joe Tricini, Elizabeth Day, and Hussein Manowar, and Joe Wicks, I probably butchered so many of those names, sorry about that, share not only their experiences with anxiety, psychosis, panic attacks, and more, but also it helps them when they are feeling low. This joyful collection is a supportive hand to anyone looking to find light on a dark day, and shows that no matter what you may be going through, you are not alone. That's our second option. And our third option is a book called A Beginner's Guide to Being Mental from Anxiety to Zero Fucks Given. This book was published in 2018. It says, am I normal? What's an anxiety disorder? Does therapy work? These are just a few of the questions Natasha Devon, and this is a memoir, by the way, is asked as she travels the UK campaigning for better mental health awareness and provision. Here, Natasha calls upon experts in the fields of psychology, neuroscience, and anthropology to debunk and demystify the full spectrum of mental health, from A, anxiety, to Z, zero fucks given, or the art of having self-esteem via everything from body image and gender to differentiating sadness from depression. Statistically, 1 in 3 of us will experience symptoms of mental illness during our lifetimes, yet all of us have a brain, and so we all have mental health. Regardless of age, sexuality, race, or background, the past few years have seen an explosion in awareness, yet it seems that there is still a widespread confusion. A Beginner's Guide to Being Mental is for anyone who wants to have this essential conversation written as only Natasha, with her combination of expertise, personal experience, and humor, knows how. I think Natasha's actually a comedian, so that is something to keep in mind as well. And also, I'm going to open it up to you guys too. If any of you have, a book about anxiety that you've read that you love, please put it in the chat now. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes. And we can pull those up as well to add those as options if you want them. And were you able to add the Amazon link? Okay. Yeah, for the current book, yeah. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do the poll for this current book, for these 3 books, and see which one you guys are interested in reading. I hate that I can't vote. Okay, so far, Rewire Your Anxious Brain is winning. That is one I've heard a lot about. Okay. So right now, The Book of Hope and A Beginner's Guide to Being Mental, those 2 are neck and neck, but they're far behind Rewire Your Anxious Brain. And you guys also let me know any topics that you would like us to read about. I also have in our Goodreads group a section on any general book suggestions. A lot of our books have come from me reading through that. Also, if you have any video requests just outside of the book club, I am about to get back into filming. I've gotten a request for taking care of your mental health as a caregiver. So I'm going to start with that, but I'm also open to any suggestions on shows or movies you might want me to break down, or other topics that you want me to talk about. Good night, Joanna. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the compliment on the content as well. More content will be coming soon. I can't even believe how long of a break I've taken now. It's been like, if it hasn't been, it's definitely been at least 6 months, but it might be over 6 months since I've actually did a sit down video. We've had a lot going on, you guys. We have had a lot going on, but I'm excited to get back into videos. Okay, well, it looks like we pretty much have a clear winner. We don't even really have to have the poll up too much longer. We'll keep it up. Looks like the winner is Rewire Your Anxious Brain. We will be meeting to talk about that on July 29th. And you guys let me know if there are any other topics that you want us to read about, and I will add that to the poll. Inside Out 2 review. Oh my gosh, I never got back to that. I did Inside Out 1. I don't know if you saw that one, and I never did Inside Out 2. I might as well, right? Just to round it out. Thank you for that, Brittany. I completely forgot about that. I said I was going to do it and everything. Okay, Ray Brian, thank you. I'm so glad to have you here tonight. Thank you for coming. Okay. I loved Inside Out 2. I loved it. Actually, I was taking notes on it in the theater as I was watching it. So, I mean, really, that one's good to go. Okay, you guys, so I'm going to go ahead and close it out. Remember, we will be reading Rewire Your Anxious Brain, and we will be meeting on July 29th to talk about that book. I appreciate you guys so much, and I will make an Inside Out 2 video just for you all. Have a great night. Bye.